It was 1:07 a.m. when my phone lit up. She's busy right now. That's all the message said. No greeting, no context, just those 4 words. It came from her boss, Daniel Harper. For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen, my heart pounding so hard it made the quiet room seem louder. My wife, Claire, had told me she was working late again. The firm's got this big client presentation, she'd said, kissing me on the cheek before heading out in a black dress that looked far too elegant for a night in the office. And now her boss was texting me from her phone. I called her immediately. No answer. I texted, "Daniel, why do you have my wife's phone?" The message showed read, but no reply came. I remember sitting there in the dark, the blue glow of the phone on my face, every possible scenario clawing at my mind. Maybe they were drunk after work. Maybe she lost her phone, and he was returning it. But even as I tried to convince myself, I knew, because deep down, I'd felt this coming for months. It started small. Claire had become distant, her smile shorter, her hugs weaker. The way she looked at me changed, not with anger or disdain, just indifference, like she'd already said goodbye somewhere in her heart. Late nights became normal. Phone always on silent. Password changed. The excuses all made sense when she said them out loud, but they never felt right when I was alone replaying them in my head. And then there was him, Daniel. I'd met him once at a company dinner. He was charming, confident, the kind of man who talked with his hands and held eye contact just a little too long. I remember how he'd laughed when she complimented his tie, how his hand brushed hers when he passed a wine bottle. I saw it, even if she didn't, or maybe she did. At 1:23 a.m., I drove to her office. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few cars glistening under the streetlights. Her car was there. His was too. I sat in my car, watching the building, my pulse racing. The lights on the top floor were still on. Through the glass, I could see faint movement, 2 silhouettes close. Then one of them disappeared behind the blinds. I don't know how long I stayed there, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. 1,000 thoughts ran through me. Rage, heartbreak, disbelief. But beneath it all, there was something else. Exhaustion. I didn't storm in. I didn't shout or break things. I just drove home. When she came in around 3:30 a.m., she smelled faintly of wine and perfume that wasn't hers. She slipped quietly into bed, thinking I was asleep. I whispered, "How was work?" She froze, just a second too long before saying, "Stressful. We finished late." I nodded into the dark. "Your boss texted me tonight." Her breath hitched. I felt her body stiffen beside me. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice suddenly small. "He said you were busy." Silence, the kind that burns. Then, softly, she said, "It's not what you think." But I didn't ask her to explain. I just said, "Go to sleep." The next morning, she tried to act normal, coffee brewing, toast popping, humming to herself. But her eyes wouldn't meet mine. When she left for work, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at her untouched mug, and decided I was done being silent. If Daniel wanted to send messages at 1 a.m., I'd send one back. At noon, I drafted an email. Not to him, not to her, but to the company's executive team, HR, the partners, and Daniel himself. Subject line: Workplace misconduct, Daniel Harper and Claire Whitman. I kept it simple, factual, attached screenshots of his text, mentioned her late-night absences, the blurred boundaries, the appearance of impropriety that might compromise the firm's reputation. I didn't accuse, didn't dramatize. I just laid it out like evidence in a trial. Then I hit send. By 4 p.m., she called me, voice trembling. "What did you do?" I said nothing, just listened as she cried, begging me to fix it, to retract the email. She said she'd lose her job, that I'd ruin her career. "You already did that yourself," I said quietly. I just told the truth. She came home that evening looking hollow. No mascara, no pretense. She sat on the couch, hands shaking. "He's married, too," she said. "He told me he'd leave her." I was stupid. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The fallout was fast. HR opened an investigation. Daniel resigned within a week. Claire was put on leave. The whispers spread through the office. Friends stopped calling. She spent her days pacing the living room, replaying her mistakes like a broken record. I didn't gloat. I didn't even raise my voice. I just moved through the days like a ghost, packing small things slowly. Books, shirts, photos. One night she asked, "Is there any chance for us?" I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman I'd built a life with, who'd smiled at me in wedding photos, who once said I made her feel safe. And all I could think was how far away that felt now. "No," I said, "you broke something you can't rebuild." A few months later, after the divorce papers were signed, she sent me one last message. I still think about that night. If I hadn't gone, maybe... I didn't reply. Some things don't need closure. They just need to end. But I did open the message thread one more time, scrolling up to that night, that first text from her boss. "She's busy right now." I stared at it for a long time, then finally hit delete conversation. As the screen went blank, I realized something. I wasn't deleting her betrayal. I was deleting the last time she ever had power over me.